The search for the causes of the global financial meltdown has led to some evidence of fraud and corruption. In the City, the financial district of London, England, during the boom, the wild partying and flaunted excess of the banking world became legendary. Then a deep throat appeared, someone who was telling tales out of school that could get everyone in trouble. City Boy was an anonymous column that appeared in a small local newspaper and soon attracted a wide following. Eventually, City Boy was revealed to be the 35-year-old extremely successful investment banker, Geraint Anderson.
I would focus on false rumours, I'd focus on drugs and strip joints, sexism, racism. I would tend to focus on the less salubrious sides of the city because I wanted people to, well, I suppose those are the things that were causing me stress and grief and making me feel rather dubious about my job, and so I wanted to just really go into the confessional and tell everyone about it.
City Boy's revelations included what he saw as widespread immoral and even criminal behavior in London's financial world. He says traders would regularly conspire to circulate false rumors about a company in order to drive its stock price up or down, depending on the bets they had placed. He says that every day traders were feeding each other inside information that would allow them to illegally profit from deals.
And that mentality was all pervasive. Insider trading, the spreading of false rumors, was becoming more and more prevalent. It was basically genuinely a Wild West casino. It was a get-rich-quick. The good times are going to stop rolling at any minute. We've got to make our money. And I found it quite disgusting in a way. I had a very religious background. My grandparents were missionaries. My father was a Labour MP. I was a hippie. What the hell was I doing in this world?
The low-level fraud revealed in Britain was nothing compared to the behavior discovered at senior corporate levels in America. U.S. investigators, however, discovered that criminal behavior is hard to prove when it involves some of the most powerful people on Wall Street. The first two U.S. executives charged with fraud were Ralph Cioffi and Matthew Tannen, who ran a giant hedge fund and America's fifth-largest investment bank, Bear Stearns. They were among the top golden boys on Wall Street, but the failure of their investment fund in 2007 eventually led to the collapse of the bank. Investors lost billions. Investigators discovered that in March 2007, the two realized that their fund was melting down. Cioffi emailed Tannen, "The worry for me is that the subprime losses will be far worse than anything people have modeled." Meanwhile, Tannen bragged that he was still finding suckers to invest in a fund he knew was failing. Believe it or not, I've been able to convince people to add more money.
They reminded me of the emails that we saw during the tech stock bubble, where the analyst would go out and shill for some stock and then in an email tell his colleagues this is crap. I think it's appalling that people who are making that much money and who purport to be smarter than everybody else basically turn out to be nothing more than devious snake oil salesmen.
At their trial, Cioffi and Tannen hired a parade of high-powered expert witnesses to testify that their actions were not illegal. Just one of those experts, R. Glenn Hubbard, a former economic advisor to George W. Bush, was paid $100,000 for his testimony.
Mr. Cioffi's not going to make any further comments.
The two were found not guilty, although they now face a raft of civil charges from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The case was seen as a shocking demonstration of the power of Wall Street money.
If we have a Wall Street bank that can afford very, very clever litigators that have an awful lot of firepower behind them, they can overwhelm the Securities and Exchange Commission. They can overwhelm other government agencies. They probably will. But that doesn't mean that they were playing the game straight. That doesn't mean that they were following the intention of the law.
In recent months, a lot of investigators in the United States have focused on the richest investment bank, Goldman Sachs.
The meeting of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission will come to order.
In the hearings of the Congressional Commission examining the meltdown, Chairman Phil Angelides went after Goldman CEO Lloyd Blankfein for betting against his own customers in the market for complicated financial products.
Do you believe that was a proper legal ethical practice?
The short answer is, this is the practice of a market maker, and I would like to explain this.
Blankfein claimed that his bank was just putting together deals, matching buyers who believed house prices were going up with sellers who believed house prices would go down. He argued it was completely normal for Goldman to take one side of that bet, or lend money to the buyer or the seller.
We provide the necessary liquidity as market makers to help ensure that buyers and sellers can complete their transactions and securities markets can function efficiently.
Goldman Sachs was not merely matching buyers to sellers. They were actively creating products for sale into the marketplace with the Goldman Sachs imprimatur behind it. And I believe that carries with it responsibility.
Lloyd Blankfein denied that responsibility. He said betting against his own clients was okay because all parties knew what they were getting into.
I'm just going to be blunt with you. It sounds to me a little bit like selling a car with faulty brakes and then buying an insurance policy on the buyer of those cars.
Every
I'm talking about betting
purchaser
against
of an
the
asset
security.
here is an institution,
Okay.
probably professional-only investors dedicated, in most cases, to this business.
Representing pension funds who have the life savings of police officers,
These
teachers.
are the professional investors who want this exposure.
But that was immediately contradicted by evidence unwittingly provided by a young Goldman trader named Fabrice Tour. A U.S. Senate committee discovered emails in which Mr. Tour had bragged that he was selling to unsophisticated investors, or as he called them, widows and orphans that I ran into at the airport. Goldman Sachs has claimed that it had no idea that the U.S. housing market was destined to collapse. But way back in January 2007, Fab Tour wrote, "The whole building is about to collapse any time now. Only potential survivor, the fabulous Fab, standing in the middle of these complex, highly leveraged, exotic trades he created." Fabrice Tour and Goldman Sachs were charged with fraud by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission.
I deny categorically the SEC's allegations, and I will defend myself in court against this false claim.
Got it? 105?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Senate Investigations Committee Chairman Carl Levin went after Tour's superiors at Goldman Sachs, reading other emails which indicated they knew they were selling faulty products to their own clients.
June 22 is the date of this email. Boy, that Timberwolf was one shitty deal. How much of that shitty deal did you sell to your clients after June 22, 2007?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the answer to that, but the price would have reflected levels that they wanted to invest in.
Oh, of course.
at that time.
But they don't know it's a... You didn't tell them you thought it was a shitty deal?
Well, I didn't say that.
Come on, Mr. Sparks.
Well, Mr.
Should
Chairman-
Goldman Sachs be trying to sell... And by the way, it sold it. A lot of it after that date. Should Goldman Sachs be trying to sell a shitty deal?
Well,
Can you answer
Again, I
that
didn't
one?
use those
Can you
words,
answer that one, yes or no?
I mean, we expect, I think, when we go into the hardware store or when we go into the toy store for our children, that when we buy products, that they're good products and that the people selling them stand behind them. It's really the nature of responsibility in a society and an economy.
Goldman Sachs eventually settled its fraud case by paying an unprecedented $550 million fine. But several members of the U.S. Congress sent this letter to the Department of Justice, officially requesting a criminal investigation of Goldman and its senior executives.
One of the reasons I'm interested in criminal proceedings is because you can go after their bank accounts. You can actually pry open, claw open their accounts, their personal accounts, their 7 homes, their limousines, their yachts. You can go after. I'm looking for justice for the American people and how we're going to get the money back that our people are owed.
Only 2 days after Goldman Sachs was charged with fraud, Chairman Lloyd Blankfein authorized a $5.5 billion package of new bonuses for his executives. That was somewhat galling to members of Congress who had seen the company benefit to the tune of several $100 billion from the U.S. government bailout.
Goldman Sachs was not a normal bank. It was a speculator in the market. How would it be if you went to Las Vegas and you gambled all your money away? And then, at the very end, when you said, oh my goodness, my bad behavior should be rewarded, right? And you get the government of the United States to pay for your losses in Las Vegas. That's a great deal. That's what he did. And they not only took their losses and gave them to someone else, they paid themselves bonuses for doing it.
The search for fraud and corruption behind the meltdown was also underway in Europe, where some high-level con artists are going right back to business.